So after 29 years of living in New Zealand, I made the decision to leave the country for good. New Zealand right here. Now when you say New Zealand, most people think Lord of the Rings, world-class nature, friendly Kiwis, and generally a pretty high quality of life. And for the most part, it is. I'm beyond grateful to have lived the life I did there, but in this video I'll be sharing some of the issues beneath the surface that's brought me to the decision to leave and start the next chapter of my life elsewhere. So until quite recently, I was living the Kiwi dream. White collar job, work from home, 6-figure salary, I was doing minimal work, and weekends I was cruising by the beach with my mates. But how I was feeling inside was a different story. I hated my job, was struggling with addiction, didn't really like what the people around me were getting up to, and despite earning a decent living, I was struggling with the cost of living. So one day, I quit my job, sold everything I had, packed my bags, and moved out to Asia to press the reset button on life. So reason number one is cost of living. It's just ridiculously expensive. Almost 130,000 Kiwis left the country last year alone to live abroad. Like a lot of other developed countries in the West, New Zealand is no different when it comes to cost of living. So housing is crazy expensive. There's a housing crisis there, and if you don't own the home that you live in, chances are you're going to have to rent with some strangers. And as an introvert, that was just fucking horrible. Food and grocery prices, ridiculous. You pay 20-30 bucks a meal just for a standard one, nothing crazy. And say you like to take a lady out on a date, that's at least 100 bucks for dinner and drinks. Around the time I left, there'd be a good amount of people shoplifting their groceries because prices are unaffordable. Public transport sucks in New Zealand. People typically own cars and you have to drive everywhere. Fuel is super expensive because the country is really far from the major oil refineries, and then it's taxed even further by the government. Now, because New Zealand's a small little island nation in the southwestern Pacific Ocean, like far away from everything, literally everything, it makes it very inconvenient to live there. So it's away from the major trade routes, it's very inaccessible, and it makes international travel very expensive. So with that, and New Zealand only having a population of just over 5 million, there's not many career or business opportunities to get ahead for us young Kiwis. Quick disclaimer, I won't get into any of New Zealand politics. Never cared, never will, and there's better videos for that. Okay, second reason, there's this really weird obsession with Kiwis about property ownership. Property is less treated as an investment vehicle and it's more tied into one's identity. Literally, if you ask any young Kiwi what their goals and aspirations are, most of them are going to include property ownership in that list. And I get the rationale, like as a sovereign being, you want to own the home that you live in, but let me tell you why that obsession with property from young people is especially an issue. First, median property prices have quadrupled in 25 years. According to ChatGPT, it's about 80x over 52 years. And you know, when you're a young person and you've got unlimited energy and you're in that building phase of life, I'd argue that anchoring yourself to one property is probably detrimental to your professional and personal growth. That's not to mention all the maintenance costs, the rates, and the headaches that come with a financial purchase as big as that. So I was a banker for a number of years and I was selling home loan applications, mortgages. I'd see young people under the age of 30 literally taking out $700,000, $1 million 30-year mortgages at like 4 or 5% interest rates. And if you crunch the numbers, that's a lot of money that you're paying just as interest to the bank. So that's the second reason. The next one is racism. Good old racism. And I'm just going to touch on this topic really briefly because I don't want to sound like a victim, nor do I want to complain, but racism was a big part of me growing up. I've been told to fuck off back to my own country more times than I can count. I've also seen my dad get attacked in a road rage incident. It's like etched into my brain. Me and my boys growing up, we used to get into altercations pretty frequently on the street. Just for people calling us names and racial slurs. Sometimes it'd escalate into violence, sometimes it won't. So in the North Island and cities like Auckland, Wellington, it's pretty good. It's largely multicultural and yeah, there's less of this, but I grew up in Christchurch. Christchurch was where the notorious mosque shootings happened, and it's quite well known for its skinheads and white nationalism as well. Now don't get me wrong, on average, Kiwis are super warm and friendly people, but I've experienced my fair share of racial abuse as an immigrant, and obviously particularly didn't enjoy it at the time, but in hindsight it helped me get into martial arts, develop a thick skin, so in a strange, roundabout way, I'm quite grateful for those experiences. The next reason is tall poppy syndrome. Tall poppy syndrome is where people criticize and downplay other people's achievements and success. So this term actually originates from Australia and New Zealand, and the reason why people don't outwardly express their goals, their aspirations in ordinary conversation is because people will criticize them. They'll shit on them for talking about their achievements or, general successes in life. They'll say things like, nah, you gotta stay humble, mate. That's for the big guys. You think you're better than everyone else? John's got a bigger boat than you. It's not very nice to be around. And yes, I personally believe in being humble as you walk through life, but Kiwis and Aussies honestly take this to the extreme. They'll tear you down instead of, encouraging you or pumping you up if you do something good. And I believe tall poppy syndrome breeds this culture of mediocrity and herd mentality where being unique and authentic is frowned upon. That's not cool. I remember one time in the office, I went out for a run during lunch, and when I came back, this chick was like, look at Augustine, guys, he thinks he's better than us because he runs. And I'm like, okay. And this culture is somehow baked into the media too. Prime example, Israel Adesanya, ex-UFC champion and arguably New Zealand's biggest star, biggest athlete. Vast majority of New Zealand articles based on him are negative about him not being humble enough.
We have this culture of tall puppy syndrome, which is messed up. Coming up in this country, I've seen it so many times. When you see one of us rising, you want to tear him down because you feel inadequate and you want to call it humble.
Another con of living in New Zealand was the drinking culture. Binge drinking is massive in New Zealand. Alcoholism runs pretty rampant in families, and I've been part of friend circles where people, as we say, get on the piss and will just get blackout drunk every single weekend, and that was normal. I imagine the weather has something to do with the binge drinking culture. 6 months out of the year, the weather's pretty great. The other 6 months, it gets cold, rainy, a little bit depressing, so that's that. I've personally never been much of a drinker, don't like how it makes me feel, don't particularly like drunk people, so that's something to be mindful if you plan to live there. So yeah, those are the reasons I left New Zealand after the majority of my life. But what I did like about New Zealand was the beautiful nature, of course. We've got some of the best beaches and hikes in the whole world. We've got really fresh organic ingredients, and New Zealand beef is seriously next level if you haven't tried. Kiwis are also some of the most friendly and down-to-earth people on this planet. They love to have a good chat. And whenever I meet a Kiwi overseas, there's a strong connection that I feel, so I'm pretty grateful for that. Also for New Zealand citizens, education and healthcare system's pretty good as well. Bunch of government subsidies, and it's a great place to retire as the country pays out superannuation to people over 65 years of age. So yeah, after living in New Zealand for the majority of my life and feeling some inner turmoil about living there long term for the reasons I mentioned, it got to a point where I felt like staying where I was felt more dangerous than if I were to leave and start fresh somewhere new. Nothing changes if nothing changes, right? I knew I had to make a drastic move if I were to grow. So I did something a lot of people would consider crazy. I quit my job, no backup plan, no safety net, and I bought a one-way ticket to Asia to travel and figure shit out. 2 years later, I feel like I've grown so much as a person, and I'm the happiest I've ever been, so I know I made the right move. What I learned from this whole journey so far is that your environment matters more than you think. And if you don't like where you are, and I mean really don't like it, you're not just having a bad day, try changing your environment. That doesn't mean you have to move halfway across the world like I did. Maybe it could be a new city or somewhere new where you don't know anyone and you have a chance to reinvent yourself. Because my problem was that I kept trying to change myself while staying in the same job, the same city, around the same people. That doesn't work. When I moved to Asia, everything felt uncomfortable, but that's where the real growth happens. And suddenly there was room to make new connections, new friends. They had bigger ambitions, and people I felt were more aligned with who I was becoming. So there you have it. Those are the reasons I left New Zealand. I'm still proud to be a Kiwi, and I'm gonna rock this accent till I die, but I don't see myself returning anytime soon for the reasons I went over in this video. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next video.